Ladies and gentlemen, the new ND3 Miata 2024 Grand Touring RF. We're comparing it today against a 2019 Club with the Brembo BBS Recaro package. That one has been modified. This one is bone stock. They both have the same engine, the ND2 ND3. It's a 2-liter inline-4 naturally aspirated, making 181 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque. Now this, the RF, adds about 100 pounds of weight up to the top. So 2,450 pounds roughly, and because the weight is higher up, they actually, in the stock configuration, Mazda actually has to make the suspension a little bit stiffer to account for the increased weight and that weight being higher up, the change in center of gravity. The big things with the ND3, two things. Number one is the retuned E-Pass, reduced friction, improved recentering, improved feedback, as well as the new asymmetric LSD, which actually increases rotation on corner exit when you're putting the power down, and increases stability on corner entry when you're trail braking and you're not gonna have as much rotation. And with the Grand Touring, as well as with the Club, you get the Bilstein dampers, as well as the front strut tower braces. And for those who've been watching my channel, I actually just placed an order for an ND3, but mine's gonna be the Club spec, which is the enthusiast choice and soft top. So with the hard top, like, my hair actually touches the liner here, and wearing a helmet driving this RF on track, not comfortable, not safe. And I'm 6'1", but even my buddy who's 5'7" said his helmet was touching. Mine was pushing up against, so I had to really, like, you know, contort my body. Not ideal. But let's see how she drives. They also have this new track mode right here, which is engaged, allows for some slip angle. The first thing that surprises me with this spec is that it feels stiffer than the soft top Grand Touring that I was driving in Vegas, and they did have to stiffen up the suspension because of that increased weight with the RF, but I didn't expect it to be that noticeable. You still do have, from a sport car's perspective, pretty soft suspension and a lot of body roll, as you can probably tell from the camera right now. Love that with the ND2 and ND3, they increased the red line, added some more power. Very easy to heel toe, good pedal placement, good throttle response. One thing that I think is underrated about these Miatas, because I mean, they are fun, they are light, everyone loves that about them, but not enough people talk about how all the inputs are so natural. And the one issue that I had with the ND2 was really the steering. But now that they've addressed that, such a well-rounded sports car. For mine, I'm definitely going to be doing some exhaust modifications. The engine has this nice character, though. It pulls in a linear way to its 7,500 RPM redline. I just want a little bit more audio theater, though. Not a fast car, but it doesn't feel slow either. It's balanced. When you weigh only 2,400 pounds, 181 horsepower is enough. And it's not a torque monster either, so not quite as anemic as an S2000, but you do need to rev this car out, and I think that's part of the sports car fun, right? You don't need a car that has torque, gobs of torque down low. Even the manual transmission, they've totally nailed it. It is such a pleasure to use. One of the best manual transmissions you can get on the market today. Really at any price point. It is such a great notch. It's not quite S2000 level good, but it's the next best thing. And you can feel on the lower speed corners that asymmetric LSD is doing some magic. It's helping generate a bit of rotation as you get on the power at corner exit. And I love that they didn't compromise on the fundamentals here. This has double wishbone front suspension, like a multi-link rear. And you see other cars in the space, things like the GR86 and the BRZ. Those did the McPherson strut front suspension. And that really compromises the front end as you push it harder. Those give way to understeer much more easily. I love here how Mazda said, no, we're gonna make a true proper sports car, front engine, rear wheel drive, double wishbone front suspension, naturally aspirated engine, lightweight, convertible, all the ingredients, and they've executed it so well. And with each generation they iterate, you know, the ND1 to the ND2, the big change was the engine, ND2 to the ND3. Now we're looking at things like the steering and the differential. Keep dialing in that recipe to just perfect the Miata. Again, this is not the exact spec that I would get. I would get the club with the BBR, but the price of that versus this is about the same. They're both around $39K. Inflation has done a number to a lot of things, including cars. When I placed that order and I looked at the final price, almost $40K, I was like, damn. These are definitely more expensive than I remember from just a few years ago. But for the ND3 versus the ND2, if you get the 23 versus the 24 model year, I think the price only went up by, I say only, but it was maybe like $800 if I'm not mistaken. And we'll do one more pull. The shorter gearing, it lets you road through your gears too. God, I love Miatas. All right, that's the ND3. For more in-depth reviews, we have a whole playlist on just the ND3 with the comparisons to other vehicles. Check that out, but now it's time to hop into the modified ND2. And now it's time for the 2019 ND2 that has been modified. Big shout out to Ron, the owner, for letting me review his car. Now, he clearly loves this thing and has put a lot of time and effort into it. It's a 2019 Club soft top, obviously, that came with the BBR package. Quite an extensive mod list that, as always, you can find down in the description. But the key things you need to know: he's done suspension with Koni adjustable sport shocks, Flying Miata lowering springs, front and rear sway bars, shock tower brace, and the alignment, negative 1.1 degrees of camber in the front and negative 1.8 in the rear. But I don't think he changed toe or caster. As for brakes, of course, it comes with the Brembos with the BBR package, but he also added the StopTech slotted rotors, front and rear, stainless steel brake lines, and of course the Advan Racing TC4 16x8-inch wheels. The BBS wheels it comes with are actually 17s, but I think it looks better like this. And we've got general G-Max RS tires with 225 section width. And we've got this Flying Miata exhaust. It's the Hush-O-Matic with high flow mid pipe. It's actually a valve system, so I'll show you that in a sec. Getting into the interior, he's also really taking care of it on the inside. He's reupholstered some of the leather, you know, Napa leather here and here. Nice touches. Even this, he got this custom made with added padding to make it a little bit higher, so when you're shifting, the ergonomics are a little bit better. I love the attention to detail, the red tack. Although I will say the red tack, it has this uneven lighting in the back, which kind of throws you off when you first get in. We do get a bit of wheel rub, older screen, larger bezels, lower resolution. That is something that has been changed with the ND3. Love that little decal right there, very nice touch. No climate control in this, which is interesting. I personally care a lot about climate control because I drove an FRS for 9 years without it, and I definitely prefer the convenience of climate control. And we're gonna turn traction off. This does not have the track mode DSC off of the new ND3. Also, new custom steering wheel, flat bottom and also thicker. First off, keep in mind, the owner doesn't track this, and I think for a street build, this has definitely improved from the stock Miata. We're much more planted. And while the suspension is a bit crashy, it's not top tier stuff by any means. You at least have much better body control. And the front end feels sharper because now you don't have to wait for it to set. But you can also tell immediately that the steering isn't quite to the same level as that ND3. It actually feels lighter here. Ooh, that is getting dislodged. Let's put that garage door opener back in place so it doesn't fly around. The steering's lighter, and you don't have that same level of loading up mid-corner or feedback. But much more responsive front end with the stiffer suspension setup. Let's get this exhaust louder, so you actually use the windshield speed adjustment here, the windshield wiper speed adjustment, and you put it to fast. So now the cutoff to actually open the valve is lower. You'll be able to hear that immediately. Also a little bit harder to visualize the red line when the actual attack is red as well. Now the seats, the Recaro's, definitely a big step up over the seats that we have in the Grand Touring. And for dual duty, they make a lot of sense. If you want to go hardcore track, then this is not going to be enough support, but for dual duty, which is the way that I plan on using my future Miata, I think these do toe that line, find that balance point quite well. Not getting as much rotation, but part of that too is that we have more tire on this. What I would love to do for you guys is compare a bone stock ND2 versus ND3 to talk about the LSD, because when this car is modified, it's hard to make an apples to apples comparison. Ooh, yeah, definitely a bit crashy suspension setup. Honestly, my first mod for my Miata will probably be sway bars, because just getting less body roll alone gives you so much more confidence, where you're able to then push the car harder in the canyons and feel like it's just more predictable. That's what you want in a sports car. You want it to be predictable so that you can push it a little bit harder. And in the stock configuration, the Miata is a lot of fun, but I wouldn't say it's confidence inspiring. Although the new steering does give you a much better feel for that front end. Chasing this AP2 S2000. Driven by my buddy Fenton's son from the Zygreen YouTube channel. And the suspension, we're getting a little bit unsettled in the rear over some of these bumps mid-corner, which could be due to the conies riding on the bump stocks. Again, a lot of this depends on your use case. Depends on how hard you're pushing it, whether that's on street or on track. I I'd say this is a step in the right direction, but if you are the kind of person that wants to push a car harder on the canyons or take it to the track, then you may modify this a little bit differently. Primarily with the suspension, but you know, also a more aggressive brake pad compound. The brakes here aren't bad, but the initial bite it's not as aggressive, and again, it depends on what you're looking for. All right, let's do a pull. Ouch. All right, so for those who are wondering, is the ND3 worth the premium over getting an ND2 and modifying it? It's gonna depend on a few things. So exterior styling wise, lighting wise, I think that's a pretty minor thing. I personally wouldn't be making a purchasing decision based on something so minor. Also, I mean, the screen, I mean, the newer ND3, nicer screen, higher resolution, smaller bezels, I get that. What I care the most about is the driving experience, and for me, I care more about steering. A lot of people don't care as much about steering, and for that, I would say the ND3 definitely has noticeably better steering, but keep in mind, this is modified here, and we've got different tires and wheels, which changes things, although you could argue that by stiffening up the chassis and certain suspension components, you should actually have better feedback. But I think the alignment in the ND2s is also different from the ND3s, which can be contributing. With the asymmetric LSD, we are getting more rotation in the ND3 versus the ND2, and more stability on corner entry. Again, that only matters if you're pushing the car harder. You can feel that here, but again, not sure how much of that is just the LSD and how much of that is the other modifications to this versus the stock ND2. But my friends, let me know what you think of the ND2 versus the ND3 Miata with a comment down below. If you want your car reviewed, visit us on jubbalandcars.com, fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.